Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I know it's been a few weeks since I've, uploaded, but I figured I'd do something a little bit different this time. I got some inspiration to maybe start doing some character bios on games that I do enjoy. So I thought, well, why not do some who is, character infos on characters that are pretty popular right now, and Genshin Impact seems to fit the bill. So, I've decided to do the first character on Kaeya, who we all know is one of the first starting characters you get when you play Genshin Impact. Well, you don't get him immediately, but he is obtained in the prologue, Act 1, the Outlander who caught the wind during the quest Crash Course. Of course, all the information I'm getting is from various sources, mainly either the Genshin Impact wiki, which details a lot of the character info that you can also find in-game as well, if a lot of it's locked behind like Ascensions or friendship requirements, some even requiring both friendship level, and you also need to complete certain quests for, I believe, most characters, probably all of them. I think, have certain information, whether it's under their profile or maybe voices, that's going to be locked behind some specific quests that are related to them. Kaeya is an interesting character. I'm not really gonna go too much into his combat and stuff like that. This is more like lore and their current information that I can get a hold of now that MiHoYo has released. I'm gonna try to stick to the information that I know and not try to get too much into speculating and theorizing, because that's not really my area of expertise. There's plenty of other YouTube channels out there that have really good content when it comes to theorizing what in the world's going on with Genshin Impact. So I figured I would just, keep this to the facts, or as close as I can with what I can find. Kaeya, I'm probably going to butcher his last name. I never get it right. Alberic is, of course, a playable cryo character, which is pretty much ice in the game. Kaeya is the Calvary captain of the Knights of Favonius. For those of you that don't know what Calvary means, normally in most video games, anybody who's the head of Calvary, specifically captains, the Calvary is usually referred to as either, getting saved by the Calvary, which would be, reinforcements, and a lot of other games, such as Fire Emblems, Calvary characters usually come riding in on horses. For whatever reason, I've never seen Kaeya on a horse. I don't think I've ever seen a horse, period, in Genshin Impact. But, I mean, obviously, Calvary doesn't always refer to a horse, per se, but you do see a lot of medieval-styled games where if they're referring to the Calvary, it's literally knights on horses. But for whatever reason, Kaeya doesn't ride on horses. He doesn't really look like the type. I mean, he does look kind of pirate-ish, so I guess that would be strange to see him on a horse. He is held in high regard by the people of Mondstadt, even with all his eccentricities and secrets. Yeah, Kaeya's very mysterious. He always seems to have an ulterior motive with everything that he does, especially when you play out his first prologue quest. You really get the feeling that he already knows more than what he's let on, and he always seems to have an ulterior motive for everything. He also seems to be very interested in Diluc's activities as well. If you've played Diluc's quest, which I'll get into that later on in the series when I get to covering Diluc. He's known as the Frostwind Swordsman. No surprise, as he wields one-handed swords, and his attribute is Cryo. Uh, he requires, of course, cryo-related materials, including hoarfrost cores and the various jade items that are cryo for his Ascension. And for his talents, he requires Mora, the treasure hunter, treasure hoarder insignias, and of course the teachings of Ballad. Once you get him up to talent level 6, he starts requiring the Spirit Locket of Bores, the Spirit Wolf. And of course, at the final talents, he requires crowns. But enough on the combat. We're going to jump right into the lore here. And this is a description from the official website. In the Knights of Favonius, Kaeya is the most trusted aide for the acting Grandmaster Jean. You can always count on him to solve any intractable problems. Everyone in Mondstadt loves Kaeya, but no one knows what secrets this witty, charming knight has. Which goes back to, he seems to have an ulterior motive, but regardless, Jean seems to trust him, so it's more likely than not that the reason he acts in the way that he does is probably for the benefit of Mondstadt. Though it is kind of shady at times, it feels like to me that it's probably best for him to do things that way. He seems to be really good at reconnaissance. But I mean, it's like the old saying goes, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room, I want to be the most informed. Kaeya seems to do pretty well on that front. Kaeya's personality, an accomplished swordsman and a strategic thinker in the Knights of Favonius, rumored to hail from beyond Mondstadt. Kaeya is an outwardly confident and charming individual with a flair for drama. He is sometimes seen as overly laid back and even lazy, but he takes his work seriously. He is surprisingly popular among the elderly of Mondstadt, even earning himself the title of top candidate for grandson-in-law. That doesn't surprise me. His charisma and determination have earned him the admiration, respect, and favor of many people in Mondstadt, yet his love for provoking others has also gained him the exasperation of those same people. Yeah, he does, he likes to be a little provocative sometimes. He seems to get a kick out of telling bold-faced lies and convincing others to do his work, but this serves him well in his role in the Knights of Favonius. He is a self-proclaimed anti-hero with an attitude problem. As long as everything ends in the way he wants, Kaeya does not care about the methods used. Still, according to his informant Vile, he draws a line at working with those who threaten other people's families, believing they deserve to be hunted down and destroyed. So he does have a little bit of honor there. That's good. Despite his seemingly malintended intentions. Kaeya enjoys putting people into high-stress situations and challenging their values, which he does to both his enemies and his allies alike. He takes pleasure in seeing the hesitation in his comrades' eyes at the moment, just before they dive into battle with him, just as he takes pleasure in the look of fear in his enemies' eyes as they face off against him. Yeah, Kaeya seems to be a cold-hearted stone killer sometimes. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, he likes to keep everybody on their toes, I guess. He's the kind of guy where you're not sure if you should trust him or not sometimes. But on the one hand, the other option isn't as great. So it's kind of like the lesser of two evils here. Despite his extroversion, the traveler has observed that he appears to struggle with loneliness, though he playfully deflects when confronted about it. He frequently reminds the traveler that they can talk to him, invites them to spend time with him, insistently offers, sometimes extensive, assistance, and often voices his disappointment whenever the traveler has to leave, showing his desire to be helpful and aversion to being alone. So despite the fact that, he deflects when it is observed that he appears to struggle with loneliness, He does seem to voice often disappointment when the traveler does have to leave, which explains showing his desire to be helpful and aversion to being alone, which would explain, his extroversion. He has to be out there talking to people, being around them, unlike being an introvert where you're just like, nah, screw all that. I don't want to talk to people. He appreciates the taste of alcohol and is often seen drinking when he is not busy. He despises grape juice, claiming that the people who drink it have no patience and are missing out. Though he understands that not everyone can drink alcohol until they come of age, the traveler thinks his drinking habit may be some kind of coping mechanism, and Rosaria implies that Kaeya's facade starts to slip when he is intoxicated. That is mentioned in one of Rosaria's voice lines about apparently when Kaeya starts drinking more than he probably should be, he starts to, lower those walls a little bit. He might want to watch his alcohol consumption there. Appearance. Kaeya is a tall young man with a lean build and a tanned complexion. His visible eye is periwinkle with long eyelashes and the same diamond-shaped pupil as Dainsleif. If you don't know who Dainsleif is, he is a character that appears in one of the Archon quests after the events in Leeway. I won't go too much into that in case, people are like, you don't want to figure it out for themselves, but he does appear in that Archon quest, not for very long, so there's still a lot of speculation on who exactly he is. But just for a little bit of details on that. He has navy blue hair with streaks of lighter blue, accompanied by a long lock of hair that rests over his left shoulder. Cascading down to his waist, his bangs cover the right side of his face and almost hides a plain black eye patch, which he claims to have inherited from his grandfather, a pirate. However, this was later revealed to be a lie he told to mess with people. Again, classic Kaeya, not really surprising. If you played that Archon quest, or I don't know if it's considered an Archon quest, but it is his quest, then you'll find out all about that. He wears a white-collared, cleavage-revealing blouse adorned by a cape with a fur collar. He wears a dark, tight-fitted trousers and knee-length boots. He also wears a loose brown belt from which his vision hangs, as well as a rope which may be meant for a scabbard to carry his sword. He has a single earring on his left ear. His outfit, Icy Featherflight, is described to be fashionable and adorned with a fur collar. That's pretty much his appearance, more or less. I mean, you'll see it on the thumbnail. More or less, that's what Kaeya looks like. He just has the standard default costume. There is no additional costumes, to my knowledge, for him yet. Right now, there is, I want to say, 8 costumes. 4 of them, or 2 of them you can get for free from events. Both those events have already passed. The other 2 you could purchase at a discount. Those discounts have been removed, so they're full price. And then the other 4 was given out for free because of the CN server's default outfits changing. Some kind of controversy with that. So I know Global and Europe got the default costumes for free. If you logged in during, I don't think it was this update. I think it was the last update. I'm not exactly sure, but they were costumes for Rosaria, Jean, Mona, and Amber. And then the ones you can purchase right now, Jean has another costume you can purchase for her, as well as Barbara. Those are their summer outfits. And then the Lantern Ride event outfits are for Ningguang and Kaching. So, as far as I know, I don't think you can... I think the default outfits, you had to log in during the last update. The update before this one. I don't think they've been added to the shop. I haven't seen them. If they have, they might add them. I don't know. They might give them out again. From my understanding, it was only during that update. If you weren't in the CN servers, you didn't get them. The CN was just an automatic thing, from my understanding. Everyone else, they're just free costumes. Woohoo! Let's see, where are we? Notably, while other Mondstadt characters' visions feature 3 feathers per wing, Kaeya's vision only features 2 feathers. He is also the only one with a wing on the right side of the back of his vision. Other Mondstadt visions have those on the left side or no wings at all on the back. I haven't noticed that. I'll have to start paying attention to the other characters if that's the case. There isn't a whole lot of Mondstadt characters, if I remember correctly, so I should definitely look at that and see how authentic that is. Character stories. Kaeya Albric is an adopted son to the Ragvinder family. I hope I pronounced that correctly. The renowned wine tycoon. It's been a long time since he last called Diluc Ragvinder brother. Kaeya currently serves as a cavalry captain of the Knights of Favonius and is trusted by Jean. And Kaeya is often the one wrapping things up in every incident that occurs in Mondstadt's vicinity. True. That is definitely true. Kaeya and Diluc are technically brothers, as Kaeya was adopted. But I don't know if their rivalry, how exactly their rivalry stems, because I'm still, learning and diving into the lore and whatnot, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of deeper, things behind all of that. For character story 1, which requires friendship level 2, is a curious fact that your best chance of finding Kaeya is not by visiting the Knights' headquarters, but by frequenting the taverns at night. That is true. Kaeya is often found sitting at the bar, gossiping with the city folk, and sipping the famed Mondstadt beverage, Death Afternoon. Death Afternoon, I like that. He is surprisingly popular among the elderly of Mondstadt, even earning himself the title of top candidate for grandson-in-law, which we saw earlier. It's hard to imagine someone as mischievous, amiable, and wine-loving as Kaeya being the cavalry captain of the Knights of Favonius. Well, I mean, everybody's got to do something when they get home from work, right? I mean, that's just how they did it back then, I guess. Hunters and bandits alike are often among Kaeya's drinking buddies. As wary of him as they may initially be, all are ultimately disarmed by his smooth talking and end up telling him everything he wants to know. Yeah, that actually makes sense. Kaeya seems like the kind of person where, he just has this charisma where it's like, you come in with your guard up, you're like, man, this is a person, I gotta have my guard up around. After, maybe a half hour, an hour, and a few drinks, you're like just telling them everything. Depending on what they then make privy to Kaeya, their night may turn into an uncontrollable nightmare or remain one of harmless banter. Everyone's got a secret, but not everyone knows what to do with it, says Kaeya with his usual arrogant smirk. Alright, so to unlock that character, story info, you need to get his friendship level to 2. Now to unlock character story 2, you need to get his friendship level to 3. Justice is not an absolute principle, but is a result of striking that fine balance between strength and strategy. As for the details of how it's done, don't worry yourself too much about that. Kaeya once said these words in front of Grandmaster Varka, which, from my understanding, we've never actually seen the Grandmaster. I haven't unless I'm blind. So far, it's really just been acting Grandmaster Jean that's been running things. I don't know if we'll ever see Grandmaster Varka or not. But who knows? Maybe. Hoyo may just one day reveal him in like an event or something. Something strange like that. I hope they actually, there is something meaningful behind that. Because, we've been playing this game for over a year now. And no one's ever seen him. Plenty of people talk about him. I don't even know if there's like images of him. I've never seen them. As long as everything falls into place the way he expects in the end, Kaeya doesn't care all that much about the means. His cavalier attitude is what defines his character. Not so unlike Death Afternoon's wild and explosive taste, one might add. However, his reckless approach to things is not uncontroversial. Once, in order to force a bandit leader into facing him directly, Kaeya triggered the Ruin Guard at an ancient ruin to cut his opponent off, putting his own men at risk in the process. It's times like these whenever Jean, who puts a lot of trust in Kaeya, finds herself shaking her head in disapproval. There we go. I was wondering when we were going to get to the part where Jean's like, yeah, what is he doing? Like, but I mean, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. Not that this bothers Kaeya, of course. On the contrary, he actually enjoys putting people into the difficult position of making tough decisions. He takes pleasure in seeing the hesitation in his comrades' eyes in a moment just before they dive into battle with him, just as he takes pleasure in the look of fear in his enemies' eyes as they face off against him. So you could say Kaeya is definitely a wild card. Hands down, he is the wild card. You don't know what he's going to do. Even when you think you know what he's going to do, he does something even you wouldn't expect. After seeing everything that he's done, everything you've read about him, everything that you think you know about him, he still will manage to surprise you. I mean, pretty wild character, both literally and metaphorically. Alright, so for character story 3, you need to get his friendship level to 4 to unlock this one. The flourishing winery business in Mondstadt has been a great source of prosperity in the region over the years. This prosperity often entices greedy bandits and monsters to the area. They are a motley bunch who hide it in the shadows, and their backgrounds, motives, and allegiances are varied and complex. Kaeya battles against this threat to Mondstadt, not only with his sword, but also with his smarts and his wit. A young knight once dedicated years of his life to studying threats in and around Mondstadt, and reached an astounding conclusion. When Death Afternoon is out of season due to lack of supply, the number of reported incidents inside and outside the city show a drastic decrease, and this remains the case until Death Afternoon returns to the market. The young knight showed his findings to Calvary Captain Kaeya in hopes of getting some advice from him. Interesting. I'll look into it, Kaeya answered, with a wry smirk on his face. So, when the alcohol that he prefers to drink is out of season or due to a lack of supply, the number of reported incidents inside and outside the city shows a drastic decrease. Of course, until Death Afternoon returns to the market. So, it makes me wonder if he stops drinking, he stops causing problems, but at the same time, are his enemies causing him less problems? Or does he just get drunk and just goes off and finds problems to create in order to solve them? Which would explain his interesting I'll look into it answer. And it's amazing that a young knight dedicated years of his life studying the threats in and out of Mondstadt to reach this conclusion. So maybe Mondstadt was never in danger and it's just in Kaeya's head, and when he gets drunk enough, he just starts hallucinating. I mean, it's obviously like ridiculous what I just said, but I mean, if his alcohol ain't in stock, nothing seems to be going wrong. It's very strange indeed. Character story 4, which requires you to get him to friendship level 5. Generally speaking, Kaeya is an easy person to have a conversation with. The only topic that you will never hear him discuss is his past. Even when the Grand Master demanded information on his background, Kaeya skirted around the issue and gave only vague answers devoid of details. So he doesn't like people poking into his past. I guess that's understandable. I mean, we all got secrets. I mean, he even said it, up the info stream up here. So yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense with his personality, and that would explain why when he gets drunk, his, guard kind of drops a little bit. Which, I mean, alcohol can have different effects on everybody, and I guess Kaeya being a steel trap that he is, when, he does get some alcohol into him, he starts loosening up a little bit. One afternoon near the end of summer a decade ago, my father and I passed by the Dawn Winery. "I'll go get us some grape juice for the road," he said, but he never came back. If Master Crepus hadn't taken me in, I doubt I'd have made it through the storm that night. This matter-of-fact description hides a carefully constructed lie. Kaeya has never once spoken the truth about what happened that afternoon. This is your chance. You are our last hope. Kaeya's father squeezed his son's lean shoulders as he spoke, seemingly looking right through Kaeya to some place far beyond. On the other side of the horizon sat their distant homeland of Conria. Kaeya would never forget the look of both hope and hatred in his father's eyes as he uttered those words. Well, this is interesting. For those of you that aren't really caught up in the Genshin Impact universe and the Dainsleif quest, they really start to talk about Conria, which is, a civilization that was destroyed over 500 years ago. The game doesn't really talk about it a whole lot, unless you go lore digging. You'll find bits and pieces here and there, but the Dainsleif Archon quest really, it feels like they're blowing it wide open, but all they did was kind of just leave us with a bunch more questions. Now, whether anything that he said right here is true or not, it's kind of hard to say, especially when it, right here where it says a carefully constructed lie. So, I mean, we don't know what to believe at this point. At least not with the information here that we have. The amount of research you have to put in just to, figure out what in the world's going on. Because, I mean, Genshin Impact has a lot of lore, between the books that you find, the enemies, materials, weapons. There's lore attached to everything. Literally everything. Even the domains. I wouldn't be surprised if, picking up a flower off the ground, there's some kind of lore attached to that somehow. Genshin Impact is packed full of lore, and it's amazing, really. That's why I like to watch, these YouTube channels that really dive deep into it. It takes a lot of work, and it's pretty amazing, some of the theories that come out of it. In order to unlock character story 5, you need to get him to friendship level 6. Many citizens still remember the two most eye-catching young gentlemen in all of Mondstadt a few years ago. One of them was the dapper Diluc, an elegant swordsman who always had a warm smile and a confident posture. The other was the eccentric Kaeya. He was Diluc's friend, supporter, and sounding board, ensuring he got through every challenge he faced smoothly. They were almost like twins, knowing each other's thoughts and intentions without a word, protecting Mondstadt in both light and dark. Until that fateful day, now ingrained deep in Kaeya's memory, when the convoy that Diluc was escorting was attacked by a huge monster. It was the first and only time that Kaeya failed in his duty. By the time Kaeya finally reached Diluc, it was all over. The power their father had used to successfully fend off the attack backfired, taking their father's life. Both Kaeya and Diluc were shocked by what they had witnessed, losing the calm composure a knight should retain. Even someone like Master Crepus would submit to such a dangerous and evil power. Sinister thoughts flashed through Kaeya's mind, and he simply smirked. This world is truly fascinating. All while their father lay dead in a pool of his own blood, it was on that night that the two sons' paths diverged. So they don't really talk a whole lot about their father, Kaeya's adopted father, Diluc's biological father. Really, just from the information here, attacked by a huge monster, ended up dying, and whatever happened here is what ultimately caused them to split paths. If I had to guess, I'd probably say that's probably a big portion of why they're so at odds with each other. Which, of course, we can get more into that when we do the next Who Is video podcast on Diluc. But yeah, there's definitely some aminosity there. A lot of unanswered questions. They sure like to leave us in the dark. No pun intended. It looks like you don't have to complete any particular quest to unlock any of his character stories. There is a category labeled a list, but it requires friendship level 4 to unlock. And it's very short. It pretty much just says, between the pages of the Adventures of Angelos, you find a list of names written on a sheet of official Knights of Favonius letterhead paper. It meticulously records the details of bandits in the city and further afield, as well as mercenaries and mid to senior level treasure hoarder members, listing for each entry a name, a position, an area of activity, and personal profile. A dozen or so names are circled, with a note in the margin saying, otherwise, things would get too boring. When questioned about it, Kaeya's response is, I suppose I must have gotten drunk and started scribbling nonsense. Your gut feeling is that Kaeya purposely lets you see this list, but you have no way of proving it. Which is true. I mean, why would he just happen to, just leave this list available for you to see? And his excuse is he must have gotten so drunk and just started scribbling nonsense. But it doesn't look like nonsense. I mean, it's meticulously recorded. If he did that while intoxicated, that's impressive. Hell, he might have, but that doesn't change the fact that, pretty sure he knew what he was doing when he wrote it. And then for the big one, his vision, which requires friendship level 6, and this pretty much describes the events that led to the individual obtaining their vision. Now, in order to obtain a vision, normally it requires some great ambition or something that causes you to reach for the pinnacle of your existence, such as, almost dying or not giving up. Equivalent to, like, the anime protagonist, like, about to die, and then all of a sudden they get this OP power out of nowhere, and they just start messing stuff up. Something like that. I know I'm overgeneralizing it. There's a good bit of info here to read, so hopefully it'll do a better job of telling you than I am. It was raining heavily in Mondstadt on the night that Kaeya Alberic received his vision. Earlier that day, Crepus Ragvander had wielded the power of a delusion, only to become its victim when it backfired. To set his father free from the unbearable agony, Diluc Ragvander took his life. Okay, so now we know why he died. He used a delusion, and I won't go into too much detail, but pretty much a delusion is pretty much the opposite of a vision. Delusions are created generally, from my understanding, solely by the Fatui. And a delusion gives the individual a great strength, but at the cost of massively and greatly shortening their lifespan. In this case, it says it backfired. So either Crepus didn't realize what he was getting into when he wielded the power of a delusion, or the delusion itself was somehow incomplete or defective, and it ended up pretty much almost killing him. If you, in the quests, the Archon quest, well, I wouldn't say Archon quest, the quest relating to Kokomi, during the war against the Raiden Shogun and Inazuma, when Kokomi and her people are repelling Kujosara and the Shogunate. The Fatui provides them with delusions under the guise of an anonymous sponsor or supplier, and the delusions start rapidly aging the individuals. I want to say, at best, you probably have a week before it finally claims you, depending on how much you use it. This is just a generalization. If I remember correctly, one of the characters, I think, ended up passing within 4 days, if even that. So, but then again, this was quite a bit of time ago, so the Fatui may have had defective delusions, which ended up still taking their victims' lives, but didn't operate the way that they were supposed to, which is not backfiring. So they may have improved upon the effects of the delusion. Or it may be referring to it backfiring as just the fact that he wielded a delusion, which he shouldn't have in the first place. Maybe he was unaware of the consequences of it, and that's what they're talking about. I'm not exactly sure. It doesn't. Well, I mean, I guess we might find out later on in this paragraph. We may not. Kaeya was Diluc's brother by adoption and was always by his side, but on this occasion, Kaeya did not partake in the final moment shared between father and son. The torrential rain that set in on Mondstadt that night seemed to be a sign of the heavens' grief at the passing of Master Crepus. There was a side to Kaeya that he kept hidden from the world. In truth, he was an agent of Khaenri'ah, placed in Mondstadt to serve their interests. His father had abandoned him in this strange and unknown land to fulfill this mission, and it was Master Crepus in the city of Mondstadt that had welcomed him with open arms when they found him. Interesting. So Kaeya really was an agent of Khaenri'ah. Oh, this is getting interesting. If Khaenri'ah and Mondstadt went to war, which side should he support? To whom should he offer his assistance? His birth father, who had ruthlessly abandoned him, or his adoptive father, who had loved him and raised him? For the longest time, Kaeya had agonized over these impossible questions, caught between the opposing demands of loyalty and duty, faced with an impossible choice between truth and happiness. But now Crepus's death upset this delicate balance. He felt liberated, but also ashamed of how selfishly he was responding. As an adopted son, he should have saved Crepus, but he had arrived moments too late. As a brother, he should have shared in Diluc's grief, and yet as our father lay dying on the ground, he had hung back behind his brother, that ancient plot running through his mind. You see, this is where things kind of get complicated, because how could he be an agent of Khaenri'ah if Khaenri'ah was destroyed 500 years ago? That's if Khaenri'ah really was destroyed 500 years ago. See, that part kind of confuses me. When they say agent, they don't really go into a lot of details as to why he's an agent of Khaenri'ah. Maybe they don't age the same in Khaenri'ah. I don't know. Maybe we'll figure something out as we read more. Consumed by guilt, Kaeya knocked on Diluc's door. As the rain poured down, the shroud of secrecy was washed away, and all lies were revealed. Kaeya had finally come clean. He had anticipated Diluc's anger. The brothers drew their blades, this time pointing them at each other. Kaeya felt that this was his punishment for a lifetime of lies. But as the two crossed blades, Kaeya was overcome by the sensation of great elemental power surging through him. For years, he had stayed out of the way in his brother's shadow, but now, for the first time ever, he was facing his brother as his true self. Bitterly cold and brittle elemental energy burst forth from the tip of his sword to meet Diluc's searing flames, head on. The clash of crimson fire and azure ice created a sudden swirl of wind that stunned them both. This was the grim moment at which Kaeya's vision appeared. Since that day, Kaeya and Diluc have gone their separate ways, but he never discusses it, just as he never discusses the origin of his vision. Though it is a reminder of a hard-fought battle and the prize that he earned in exchange for revealing the unadulterated truth, Kaeya sees it as a stern reminder that he must live the rest of his life under the heavy burden of lies. And that would be another example of obtaining a vision. He had finally stopped lying to himself, lying, to his brother in a sense. He had finally stepped out and owned everything that he was, and therefore he was blessed with a vision. Let's see. All the quests that Kaeya appears in so far is the prologue, Act 1, The Outlander Who Caught the Wind, Dragonstorm, Knights of Favonius quest, Crash Course, Act 3, Song of the Dragon and Freedom, When the Wind Dies Down, story quest, Pavio Oculus chapter, which is his story, Act 1, Secret Pirate Treasure, Noctua chapter, Diluc story, Act 1, Dark Knight Hero's Alibi, Leo Minor chapter, Gene story, Master's Day Off, and When the Wind Arises, and Master's Day Off, the quest. Carmen DI chapter, Venti story, Should You Be Trapped in a Windless Land, and A Child's Secret. Events, he doesn't appear directly in the Lantern Rite event, I don't believe. Maybe the first year, but I don't think the second year. Currents Deep Beneath the Lanterns, Invitations of Windbloom, Act 1, Ode to Flower and Cloud, Missive of Cloud and Fog, Realm of Fog and Wind. Yeah, that's the first one, I believe. Or that's under the Invitations of Windbloom. Midsummer Island Adventure, Dodo, King of the Sea, Lying in Wait, The Final Riddle is Secret Uncovered. He also appears in these web events, Side by Side We Venture, and An Unforgettable Journey. The following characters mention Kaeya and their character stories or voiceovers. Albedo voice, Amber voice, Diluc voice, Diona voice, Eula story only, Fischl voice, Jean voice, Klee both story and voice, Lisa story, Mona voice, Noelle story and voice, Surcros, Rosaria, and the Traveler all voice lines. And of course we have a little bit of trivia here, but I won't really get into. And that's about it. He is listed as a 4-star character. And you do get him free. So there's that. That's pretty much all of the story lines that come directly from the game. As far as the character stories, the appearance is just basically going off his actual character model appearance. And then the personality is just pretty much a subjective, which I think it's pretty actually well-written personality of pretty much who and what Kaeya is. There's a lot of voiceovers. Tons of voiceovers. Because, you know, I mean, there's freaking, you know, lore and everything. But yeah, that's more or less Kaeya in a nutshell. I know it's not massively in-depth, but we're almost at 45 minutes here, so this is really just me going over what's generally found already in the game. We could sit here all day and speculate, like, you know, when did he become an agent of Khaenri'ah? You know, why is he an agent of Khaenri'ah? Why did he decide to, you know, reveal everything to Diluc? Was it because their father had died, you know, or his adopted father, but essentially, you know, his father? There's so much we could get into and just not enough time to get into it. But I really enjoy Kaeya as a character, his personality. Combat-wise, I like him as well. He's a really good assist character. His ult and skills are pretty useful in battle. Just a little bit on, you know, his combat. But yeah. And as far as his Ascension special stats, which I forgot to mention, it is energy recharge. So when you ascend him to the final Ascension, 26.7% of his energy recharge is from Ascensions. So that's his Ascension stat. His birthday is November 30th. His constellation is Pavo. I want to say that's pronounced Oculus, but it might be Oculus. It might be Oculus because his constellation kind of looks like a fox or a cat. I probably lean more towards some kind of fox. His regions are listed as Mondstadt and Khaenri'ah, of course, because he's an agent of Khaenri'ah. affiliation, Knights of Favonius. As far as his, alliances with Conria, all we know is that he's an agent. Everything else is pretty unclear. His special dish is fruity skewers. Of course, we know how to obtain them, complete the crash course. Wanderlust Invocation for wishing, and he does show up in Paimon's Bargains. He was released on September 28th, 2020. And then additional titles, Quartermaster of the Knights, which I think fits him better than Calvary Captain. I don't know, I mean, if he was riding on a seahorse or something, I could see Calvary Captain. But yeah, that looks like everything we got for our Captain of the Calvary Knights. And this is the first time I've ever done something like this. I don't usually do, like, podcast-ish type stuff. This is just something I've been wanting to do for a while. And I was like, well, now's as good a time as ever. I've pretty much cleared everything else out, so why don't we talk about some of Genshin Impact's characters and their lore as best that I can. I'm not sure who I'm going to do next. I'll probably start out with the 4 starting characters. I did Kaeya first because, I don't know, partially because, he's one of the starting characters, and there's just something interesting about Kaeya, why he wears an eye patch, his talk about being a pirate, his connection to Conria, him and Diluc being at odds with each other, how he got his vision. He's just a really fascinating character. So yeah, I figured I'd do him first. I'll make sure to link the source that I got this from, so you guys can check it out for yourself if you just don't want to go through the motions of building up his friendship to see all of this. It's all available right here. I would like to think this is pretty accurate, but like I said, I'm going off the information I can find and kind of just speculating. At that point, I try to keep everything, to the facts as close as I can. Of course, this is for entertainment purposes, so I mean, I'm not like, the expert on Genshin Impact lore, at all. And I'm not going to try to portray myself that way either. But I hope that y'all did enjoy today's podcast. See who we'll do next time. You can hit me up on Twitter, DMs, or tag me and tell me who you'd like me to do a video on next, or podcast. Technically, I'm recording this. It'll be a video, but it'll also be a podcast. Of course, you can also subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, so you'll always know when I upload. And the rest of my socials, Reddit, Twitch, is also going to be in the description, as well as my Discord. And I'll also have the music that I used in the description as well. And of course, the tools that I use to make the thumbnails and the font. And if you've noticed, the new art, as for the cover for this podcast, just got finished last week. I'll also be linking the artist who worked really hard on that for me, her Twitter as well, in the description. That way y'all can go follow her, or maybe even go commission her and check out her art. She did a really good job. I was very impressed. It took little bit longer than I wanted, but it was definitely worth it. Really good stuff. That's all I got, so I will see y'all next time. See ya.